most of the speaking, okay? But I just wanted to give a little bit of backstory of how this happened. I want to give a backstory of how this whole adventure began, and I'm just going to walk you through the backstory. Uh, um, please stop.
I know.
Okay, so the backstory started last February, about exactly a year back. And basically, the way it started is that we signed up, Sanjiv and I signed up for the Avna Geo Tours Iceland trip. Okay, and while we signed up, excited, and then we said, "Oh, Mike had gone to Greenland," and a lot of you probably have attended his Greenland webinar or presentation. And we said, well, only way you can go to Greenland is either from Iceland or from Denmark, right? So we said, hey, we're going to Iceland. Hey, let's go to Greenland, right? Okay, let's just add about 5 days to the itinerary, and debated whether we should do it before or after. We said, okay, before, because it's going to be warmer. It was September. We tried that. So 5 days ended up becoming almost like 12 days because Greenland is hard to get to. We had this ambitious plan of doing multiple stops, multiple places to visit. Well, itineraries don't work out that way. There's very limited methods of going from one place to the other. Flights are not every day. We're going to take this ferry over. The ferry goes up and down, as Sanjeev will tell you later. It takes 2 weeks to go up and down the coast. It's all only on the west coast. So after all this, we said, okay, we're going to go to two places: Nuuk, the capital of Greenland, and Ilulissat, which is the most visited place, or one of the most visited. Well, that was the plan. We were ready to get to the airport. We were flying from New York. We were ready to get to the airport. The morning of the flight, I'm out running, getting ready. I'll come back. I always, before I turn around, I always check my email. There's an email from Iceland Air saying your flight to Nuuk has been canceled from Reykjavik, and we've rebooked you 5 days later. Right, so here's that our adventures begin. All kinds of false starts, as they say in football, right? And with all this stress of traveling, etc., we're in the taxi trying to change. Bottom line is, we did a lot of finagling at the end. We had to skip going to Nuuk because we just couldn't get the connection. We ended up in Ilulissat for most of the time. We actually ended up in Iceland, before. Bottom line of all this story is, don't go to Greenland with limited time. Be flexible, right? That's the one thing. The second thing is that, kind of all's well that ends well. Is that it turns out after all this, we got more time in Ilulissat, and I am absolutely in love with the place. And second thing is that our flights, which got canceled, were all night flights. I don't know why they fly at midnight or 10 p.m., but original flights, all of them got canceled, and we ended up with morning flights. And you will see the reason why that was such a great thing. With that, I'm going to hand it over to the actual presentation. Hopefully, you'll all like it.
All right, here we go. Ilulissat is icebergs, and it's icebergs in Kala, Kalashisut. Kalashisut. The double L is pronounced with you. You stick your back of your tongue under your molars and then say, so it's Kalashisut. Kalashisut. That's the Greenlandic language, and Kalashisut Nunat is Kalalit Nunat is Greenland. Kalashit Nunat. And to give you an idea, we're kind of talking way up north. Arctic Circle is the Nuuk is south of the Arctic Circle, but we'll be going all the way up to 70 degrees north latitude. So Kalasit Nunat is the land of the Kalasit, and Kalasit language of the Gaelic. And Greenland is an autonomous territory of the Kingdom of Denmark. Um, Population 56,000, 90% is Inuit, 9% is Danish and other Nordic. 88% of the population lives in this region. This looks sort of green. And there are a dozen or 18 settlements, and 90% of the population lives in those settlements. And the Ilulissat that we went to is a population of 5,000. That's the third largest city. And another place we went to, Umanak, which you'll enjoy hearing about, is the eighth largest city. And there are many other the large cities which are at the bottom here, in the southern tip. The ice sheet, which you can see here, formed 250,000 years ago and covers 80% of the land area of Greenland. So most of it is ice, and the depth varies between 1,000 and 3,000 feet. The deepest at the center. And then just to give a sense of scale, the ice sheet is about the size of Alaska. So Greenland is just a little bit larger than Alaska. So here's Alaska, and if I sort of translate it over to the higher latitude here, you end up, it looks about that size. So here's, as Urmi said, we got to enjoy daytime flights. There's on the way in, there were clouds. On the way out, it was just amazing. So these are the mountains sticking out above the ice sheet, and then this is, so we fly at 10, 12,000 feet. These little aircraft, propeller. And so I just want to sort of give a feel for what flying over Greenland is like. And see white. And so then, we saw that big map of Greenland, and this is sort of the little area that we will be visiting. It's 1% or less of the entire area of Greenland. So this area is what we Ilulissat and Umanak, and this area called Disco Island. More ice. And so then, as we approach Ilulissat, we approach this thing called Ilulissat Ice Fjord, and that's going to be a theme of this for the next few minutes. This is Ilulissat Ice Fjord. So this is that area that we talked about, Disco Island, and this is Ilulissat Ice Fjord. So you can see this is sort of a tongue of ice jutting out into Disco Bay here. I didn't sort of point to Baffin Bay and Canada and where it meets, but we'll get a chance to see this map again as we go forward. So Sermequashek is the UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's the Sermequashek is this glacier that feeds the Ilulissat Ice Fjord. And so here's the Ilulissat Ice Fjord. This is sort of, now we're kind of off the main ice sheet onto where there's floating ice on the water. And here's us coming in into Ilulissat. Exciting.
First exposure to icebergs, and like so excited.
There's an iceberg, there's boats. And so we're at Ilulissat Airport. Just arrived. And so the first thing most exciting thing was to have seen this ice fjord. So we were ready to go visit the ice fjord next. So this is Ilulissat Ice Fjord, also called Kangia in the local language, is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and they've built this fantastic ice fjord center. And from past the ice fjord center, there's a boardwalk going out to Sermermuit. We'll talk about that. Sermermuit is an old settlement. It goes back hundreds of years, maybe 1,000 years. We'll talk about that. But it's this marshy land that was conducive to maybe growing things, maybe warm enough to live in and fish in the ice fjord. And then we are approaching where the Sermermuit, the site itself. Um, yeah, it's amazing. Just these are our first day. Right after we arrived, we needed to, get to the ice fjord, and this they warn you from sort of getting too close to this. A little more on that a little later. So here we are. That's what it looks like. I want you to experience what it feels like to be to be at the ice fjord. This is September.
September.
This is mid-September, September 12th, I think. So this is something called the Blue Trail. Um, and then there's something called the Yellow Trail. There's a little cafeteria which was closed. It was too late. It's only open in summer. Yeah, they have muffins and cakes apparently.
Wine, actually.
Yes, and wine. And so yeah, just feel what it's like over there. Did you want to add? So what's a ice fjord? So glaciers are constantly flowing, pushed forward by the weight of their own ice. And so Kuyashek is known as the fastest glacier in the world. It travels 100, on average, 130 feet in 24 hours, 9 miles per year. So it's really flowing, and it basically feeds lots and lots of icebergs, 11 cubic miles of iceberg per year. 70 million tons of ice flows through the ice through this ice fjord every day, and it produces 10% of the production of icebergs of Greenland come from this one fastest flowing glacier called Kuyashek. And it is for this reason, for the 10% reason, it is believed that the Titanic was sunk by a iceberg from Kuyashek. So here's a really nice visualization that shows the speed of ice flow, the glacial ice flow on the ice sheet. And so this is 1,000 meters per year. These reds and blues are about 100 meters per year. So you can see how this is sort of the reddest flow. That's Sermekhuyashek, 130 feet in 24 hours on average. So that's sort of the glacier, and this is and basically over the years it has shrunk and grown back and so on and so forth. So it's not the ice fjord. So here's fairly something interesting. So here the depth of the water goes down to about 3,000 feet, and so huge carved icebergs kind of drop in here into the ice fjord. And then the exit, because of piling up of rocks and debris and so on, is the exit is only 1,000 feet. And so all these huge icebergs go and get sort of jammed, and as they carve, they go start getting jammed at the exit, and then either they roll over, push over, they melt, and so on and so forth. Over time, these icebergs are pushed out into this Disco Bay, and then in Disco Bay, the current sort of flows to the north, and then the main current in Baffin Bay brings the icebergs to the south. So that's sort of how the flow is. So they come out and then they go up around the island and come to the north. And we will travel with
Yeah. So the Disco Island goes around, and then it actually gets to Newfoundland
the main
and,
current.
and everywhere else, so it has to go around.
Which was pretty interesting because we were in Newfoundland last summer looking for icebergs and didn't see any, and we were sort of disappointed. But then, fortunately, we ended up seeing enough icebergs. So here's they warn you to not get too close because these carving icebergs can create huge tsunamis and so on. So don't get too far down close to the water. And some interesting photographs of what they look like.
And notice the Canada goose.
Canada
The
goose.
Canada goose.
Canada goose.
I was like,
And then these are there's some cruise ship came around, and there were like these canoe people wanted to go canoeing in the iceberg. And so this is 6 or 8 canoes, and just to give you a scale, that's that's the iceberg that they were kind of approaching. Yeah, pretty amazing. Yeah. So then a few days later, went on a sunset cruise through the ice fjord.
It's the Cora.
Oops.
Note the full moon.
Yeah, we
We
were
were
lucky.
really lucky.
Yeah, more on the moon later as well. And the water is still, we're like, yeah, where are those storms that canceled our flights? Yeah, that's okay. I didn't say anything important. All right.
Wow. Oh, that's a nice shot.
Oh, thank you. It was easy. You go to nice places. And so then sunset cruise. So we got to the sunset and the moon. So this, as I mentioned, this is also the area where archaeological digs have found, you know, uh, settlements from many years ago. The earliest settlement that's been found is a few tens of miles north of Ilulissat, or maybe 50 miles north of Ilulissat, in a place called Sakak, which is from 2500 BC. And but the migrations, as we all know, occurred along the northern coastline of Canada and across the strait 2500 years ago, uh, into Greenland. Sermermuit, which was excavated in the 1950 and 1983, evidence of settlements 800 BC, and a continuous settlement from 1200 AD, called the Thuli settlement. So that's kind of where we went. So here's how you get there, as we showed earlier, and this is sort of where where you could they had access to the ice fjord. And this is actually a pretty important area. It's called Nakavik, the place where you fall. It turns out that it turns out that the people, as they got old and were unable to stay with the group, would actually jump off and relieve the group of having to take care of them.
And you can see, go back, you can see the place where you jump on.
Yes.
And you stand there.
Yeah, is it very deep? I didn't take a picture there. It was a bit scary. So as we were there in fall. So this is fall colors in Greenland. And I thought, so this is all on the blue and yellow trail. Um, I also found a flower. So this is fairly interesting. It's called Sekinyarthik. It's the high point where the blue and the yellow trails come together, and everywhere in the places in the Arctic Circle, there's a place where you first see the sun after. So in Ilulissat, it is on January 13th at 12, at somewhere around noon, or after 46 days of darkness, or not darkness, but no sun. You see a glimpse of the sun, for momentarily glimpse of the sun, so a rise and fall. And so that is called Sekin Yarfik. And on January 13th, a lot of people from Ilulissat will go and gather there. And so I kept trying to track somebody I know there send me pictures, but in the end, Urmi found something, or maybe I did on the web, and so somebody did take pictures of some people traveling on January 13th to observe, and it turned out to be cloudy, but the sun probably rose at 12:56, and
I have to admit, this picture was posted in Facebook, which I generally try to avoid. But the fantastic pictures from Ilulissat. I've joined the group called I Love Ilulissat or something like that.
great group called I Love Ilulissat on Facebook, which just amazing pictures all the time. So next we are on to more ice. You can see how happy. So we're off to visit a glacier called Sermia, and it's basically you take a boat from here and you head on out to visit this glacier out here. It's called Ekip Sermia. And it's because you can visit the glacier, unlike here, where to visit the glacier itself, you would have to be on the ice field. So this one you sort of I'm going to let you enjoy our ride. So this is our driver, captain, and here we go.
By the way, that's a cruise ship.
So enjoy the ride. Nothing. Many icebergs. A little fog in the morning, which will clear out later. We were three boats, but in our boat there were just two other people, just one other couple.
And what you can see is that as we're approaching, you can see a lot of. So by now it's like 21st of September. So you can see ice, it's freezing over, and we're cutting through some of the fresh ice. I don't know if you can tell.
All going to come.
Temperature was not cold.
We're going to show you how wonderful time we had. It was warm. This is also probably a time to warn everyone that we probably run over.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot to share. It's all interesting. So that's sort of the glacier that we're going to try to come as close as possible to. And we actually get to only within 2 miles. This is we're getting close to 2 miles from that glacier.
And that's because the road or the path to the glacier is now frozen.
Yeah. Now it looks.
They could go closer.
You could get to 1 mile, but now in September you can only get to within 2 miles of it.
And they would stop this in first week of October. So
no more trips.
Yeah, no more. They couldn't go to this glacier.
And sort of here, that big curve there, that's where it's been carving.
So they're communicating the boats, and it's all in Kalalit, which is the language, the Greenlandic language, because the people are all Greenlandic. The operators we chose, local operators, not Danish.
So here's the thing that's carving that we saw for an hour. We sat there and watched it, kept carving, and I at least caught one. And Urmi screamed at me to make sure I didn't miss the video.
It's going. There.
Yeah, how high is it?
I don't know.
It's really tall.
I don't know. I don't know the answer.
Two-story building, three-story building.
Yeah, we could
Or-
hear it. That's when I
Yeah.
told him to get ready.
Yeah, we could hear it, and we could and you could feel the water move up and
Yeah.
down.
Is it really more of a blue color? In Alaska, it's blue.
No,
It's
this is
blue
it.
color up there.
This is it.
So you'll see later that the blue color is kind of on the bottom.
There's a little.
And there's the happy person living dangerous.
This is now we're returning back.
Okay, so that's the celebration of our visit there. Is this the link? So here, wanted to sort of, I think this was a good time to share that it's all about ice. So here's the a short list of words about ice. And so Sermiak is glacier, and then Iluliak is one iceberg, and Ilulissat is many icebergs. And Ilulissat is part of iceberg below the waterline. And then I love this. There's a word for ice flow. There's a word for a large ice flow, and then there's a word for a small ice flow that is not large enough to stand on. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so Urmi, you want to talk about the next
So
phase?
yeah, so after this, as if it wasn't enough excitement, we go now. We take this ferry. So remember, if you remember, I said earlier that there's this ferry. So basically, what we didn't talk about here is that the only way to go from settlement to settlement, there are no roads to which connect a settlement to another settlement or a town to another. So you can fly. A lot of the little ones are, connected by helicopters or very small planes. Or livelihood is the ferry, which is that what happened to the ferry? Okay, so the Sarfak it took, and you can see the cap. Arctic Umiak is the line, and the Sarfak it took is the ferry, which goes up and down the coast, the west coast of Greenland. Takes 2 weeks 2 weeks to go up and down the coast, and various places you can see. All they stop at these places, and it says locals use it to go visit their family, to go get supplies, etc. And so you can see how many stops there are, and and some of the places are big stops. So we actually, even though we couldn't do the longer trip on the ferry that we wanted to, but again, silver lining, we ended up going on it was a 2-night trip. So only this year, starting 2024, last year, they started going up from Ilulissat to this place called Umana. Okay. And we actually happened to be able to go to Umanak. So it goes to Umanak, comes back, and then it'll go all the way down to the south side of Greenland. So we actually spent 2 nights, one day going up, one day going down. And and you can see the way it goes. This is Disco Island, and it goes around and goes to this little settlement of Umanak.
Yeah,
Okay.
sort of follows the
Yeah.
icebergs.
Yeah. And and we're never in open ocean. These are all the bays, basically. It's the Disco Bay. So this is what we're going out on the ferry. The ferry has cabins of some cabins, but a lot of bunks for people to use regularly for their commute. It was a nice cabin, but see what you see from the window. I mean, it was hard to go to sleep, right? I mean, basically, all you see are these, incredible icebergs. And then the two coasts. One side is Disco Island, which is not full of ice. It's a geologic, it's actually a volcanic island. I won't get into that. But the other side, which is the mainland of Greenland, is all covered in ice. So basically, that's what you see. So it was so nice an experience because the crew was, I would say, almost all of them, other than I think the purser, who are all Greenlandic, local
Inuit.
Inuits. And they were so friendly. You can see how we got to spend time with them, the crew. And
Yes.
then I'll show you this other thing, and I'm sure that you would all like to know what all we ate in Greenland. Well, we won't get into that.
One work it was the second officer, and I'm in touch with him on WhatsApp. So.
So and then go to the food. Yeah, okay. So the best food we had, of course, a lot of fish, but in Greenland during our stay is actually on the ferry. I was really good food and a lot of
And a lot of food.
a lot of food. Yes. By the way, it was
And
actually
included in
yeah.
our
We actually ended up with a good deal, which I always like. It was the food was included, dinner was included. Okay, so carry on.
so all
Uh,
you see is iceberg.
yeah, and now here's I think blue. You can see where I think you can see
Yeah.
the profile of blue around there. So it just depends on the concentration, and then the basically the depth of the ice really. And so you can see the blue. And I don't know if you mentioned, but what is it that only 10% is the only 10% of the volume of the iceberg is actually above the water. 90% is down below. Okay.
So more icebergs. Then the sun goes down, icebergs. Sun, sunset on the mountains.
Yes.
More sunset. The moon comes up
With iceberg.
with icebergs. So there's a theme here. And
Then we reach Uman.
Umanak.
Okay. How many of you, as soon as you see this mountain, what would you call it? Would you actually say it's heart shaped? I know this is like okay, so they call it the heart shaped
Heart-shaped mountain.
mountain.
Umanak.
Had a heart shape. I actually have bought a little token, and I just still look at it and say, okay, maybe.
So here we go. So here we go. Comment to Umanak.
Notice the dress.
So these girls are all from this thing that we'll talk about, children's home in Umanak. Okay, so we talked about the Kalalisut language. So here's some words that you should all practice. So hey, hi is hey, and Ajungi is how are you, and Kuyanak we learned that and we used it quite a bit. Kuyanak is thank you, and Ishishu is you're welcome. Ishishu. And that's two L's and two L's. So ihihiu. And then this is good. This is a hard one. So utokata serpunga, but I
How
have
do you
practice for
say
you.
I am sorry in Greenlandic? It's a tough one today.
우독가쪽붕아
Udokkatsokpunga.
우독가쩍붕아
우독가쪽붕아
Udokkatsokpunga. Udokkatsokpunga.
우독가쩍붕아
And in Greenlandic, we don't have a specific word for excuse me. So when we want to pass by someone, we just say, hello, senakutsurashin. So hello means
Excuse me
hello. Life is amazing, akago. I say, tutliani. Life is amazing, tutliani. That goes.
I discovered this Q's Greenland channel, and she's just amazing. She has hundreds of videos, and it's a lot of fun. Her name is Kupanuk Olsen. You want to say something?
Yeah, I know. Just wanted to point out. I don't know if you noticed her earrings. The reason I want to show this is because in Umanak, when we arrived, there was a cruise ship that had also arrived. So there are these local, I would say, grandmas, grandparents, grandmas. I mean, women. They had set up this little, literally card tables selling some jewelry, all kinds of stuff. So I actually bought it there. I mean, that's pretty much the only thing I bought. But that later on, I realized that this is very, very traditional. This is what they all use, and you saw that in the video.
And so Takus is Siu. Okay, so then we arrived in Umanak.
Yeah, so Umanak, we've arrived and we had about 10 hours to walk around. It's wonderful. Okay, the only way you go around is by walking, which is great. Of course, you can get a taxi. So there's some old, houses there. It's fantastic. You'll see all these stairs connecting the various houses. There. One thing you'll notice in Greenland, I mean, one of the things that really surprised us is, well, I don't know, surprise is not the right word, but how well maintained. I mean, you've already always heard about, colorful houses, etc. But remember, this is really difficult climate. Look at how beautifully maintained these houses are. And it's so after a lot of discussion and thought, we realized that the Danish government reimburses or supports the local economy quite a bit. So the local people are actually quite comfortable, right?
And so you see the color, but you also hear.
Yeah.
This is what you hear everywhere you go to Greenland.
Can you hear? It's the dogs. It's the sled dogs.
Wherever you go, this is what you hear.
Yeah, so we walk around. That's why, because there's not many cars, right? So, and you see how beautiful this whole landscape. It's completely Arctic, the rocks, etc.
So that's the.
Yeah, and by the way, it's September end, and this part. So we're up north, as he said, we're 70 degrees north on latitude, and everything. The roads were very already icy. I mean, just walking around. Yeah, I like.
Here's another view.
Yeah, you can see now that was the cruise ship that was had basically that's where they have to park, and then they or
bring boats
or dock, whatever the right word is, and then they bring Zodiac full of people coming to the shore.
Were those fuel tanks? Are those fuel tanks that are near the water? Okay.
They are fuel tanks, and that's one of their big economic. Yeah, that's exactly. That was my thing. I never knew. I mean, this is early in the morning, and so they must have kept it overnight. And I thought it's going to be frozen, right? Yeah. So this is a kindergarten school, and this is the high school or a big school, and then there's the. You saw this thing in the video, but it's Santa's post office. So everybody writes letters, and these children actually,
Of the high school,
yeah,
they respond. So
yeah.
they say that the letters from China, Japan, Hong Kong, Germany, Russia, Denmark, Taiwan, also Ukraine, Malaysia, US, and more. So anyway, that was pretty interesting. Then we went to the Umanak Children's Home.
Go ahead. I forget what happened there.
So it's a children's home. There's one children's home in all of Greenland. So it's in Umanak, and basically it's for orphans, and they learn all kinds of skills, including music. It turns out that the music teachers are from Venezuela. So from the famous school in Venezuela that produces all kinds of classical musicians. So this was inside. They let us tour, but they didn't want us to meet the kids, which is fine. And then we wanted to get to Umanak Museum, but it was closed because the cruise ship had left. And
Yes.
so,
Yeah,
and
we were
so
walking too much.
we were out exploring, and then they closed it. And then we came back, and we told the Uangnak, the second officer on the ferry, he was coming off. I said, "Well, we wanted to see the museum, and we couldn't get in." And he said, "Well, go to the city office." And somebody will. So we went to the office. We said, "Who can help? Open the museum?" They said, "Go to the second floor." And so we went to the second floor. They, anyway, we found somebody, and she was just amazing. She came out, and
There she is, Anne Marie, and she opened it. And by the way, I picked up a bunch of stuff from there. It's a really amazing museum, little museum.
and she let us spend time. She opened another building, which is some doctor's office from 100 years. And so, anyway, she was most enthusiastic to show. We were the only two, or maybe one of 10 tourists that day in Umanak. So, and then we met some other guy. So yeah. This is more stuff inside the museum, all kinds of local arts and so on. And then we ran into in the other place. They were showing. There was an exhibition of paintings of someone called Rockwell Kent, who's from the Catskills, I think, and he spent a few years in Umanak and made lots of paintings. They to me to me, they reminded me of someone I know from years ago. And so I'm just going to show you the other paintings. And I think those are even more amazing. That's Nicholas Roerich. I'm not sure how many I've heard, but he painted the Himalayas, and but somehow the style connected in my mind. So this is Umanak, and I loved this. We went to a cafe in the end, and
It's by Filipinos.
which was run by Filipino young Filipino girls. But it said life is simple, it's just not easy. I thought it was really nice. Um, okay, that's
Speak English?
Yeah.
Everybody speaks English.
everybody
They're
spoke
learning it.
English. Everybody spoke English. That's Umanak. We were saying goodbye to Umanak and on to Ilulissat.
Yeah.
So this is the most iconic picture of Ilulissat that you'll see. This is something called Zion's Church, and everybody posts pictures of this all the time, and it's always different because it depends how much ice there is in the bay behind, and it just changes all the time, and how many clouds and how much. So this is the iconic Ilulissat. Sometimes it's like this when you look out, and other times it's not like this. The total area of Ilulissat is 4 square miles, and we spent 10 days there. So it was quite exciting, quite enjoyable to sort of discover. And that's what I'm going to tell you about when you spend time in one place, how you can experience it. The population is 5,000. There are 3 grocery/general stores because they carry a lot of stuff more than grocery. There are a dozen hotels and a dozen restaurants, including Thai food.
Mostly Thai food.
Lots of Thai food, yeah. Surprisingly, lots of Thai food. This is one of the hotels has built these new cabins. Pretty nice. It's called Arctic Hotel. Um, the bay. I just wanted to show you that that's sort of one of the during our stay, two cruise ships came through. This is just shows an iceberg with you know with, next to a cruise ship. Tourism is obviously important to them, so there's some signs for tourists. There are more boats than cars. That's for sure. There are probably hundreds of cars, maybe not 100. Maybe if yeah. Fishing is obviously the most important employment in Greenland, and so there's something called halibut Greenland. And Urmi showed me some recent pictures of somebody catching a halibut that big.
Ice fishing.
In ice fishing. The public sector employment is 13,000, so about almost 40% is public sector employment. And a lot of the, as Urmi pointed out, a lot of the money flows from the Danish government. So here's more fishing. That's halibut shipping. There's a dedication to fishermen, and so there's 5,000 people who live in these homes. There's, I mean, this may be a quarter of all the homes that there are, and then there's 3,500 sled dogs that live here, that live in this open space, and they're tied there with chains, with really heavy chains, and so though they all live here, they're all tied except the little babies are not tied. So there are always more and more sled dogs being produced, and they until they are a year old, they are allowed to run around free, and you can pet them, but you can't pet the working sled dogs. They are not pettable. But so what these little puppies do is go and bug the older dogs who can't who are tied with chains, and so then all this begins. Or maybe there's some feeding going on. So what you always hear this in any town in Greenland, in any settlement in Greenland, you basically hear sled dogs screaming,
They're howling. They're
howling. They're wolves.
They
They
really
are.
are.
They are
I'll show you
wolves.
a picture.
Yeah, we'll show you more. Anyway, here's what the homes look like. Some apartments, a car. This is one of the three grocery stores. 7 to 21 means it's open at 7, closes at 9. This one also is called Pacific. That's the second of the grocery stores. Here's a local community and gym, community center and gym, and taxis. There were I don't know if there were any stop signs in Ilulissat, and these taxis were just there were two dozen taxis. They were just zipping around. Every time you look, there was some taxi going this way or the other. This is the hospital next to the church. Actually, church is right here on the left. The cemetery. Here's a school. It said Snoop Dogg.
Graffiti.
And this is the playground. And this is the children's playground. And then a union office with the upraised fist. And so we went to the museum. Ilulissat has two museums: the art museum and the Ilulissat museum. So there found some paintings by a Danish artist who was trying to sell Greenland to Danes. So very iconic pictures. Some art like that, native art, cultural. One of the important things is canoes, kayaks, kayak, and it's spelled Qajak. And there's lots of things you learn about kayaks in the museum. One of it is that the kayak is sort of fitted to a human, and it's you can sort of move around stealthily, quietly, and also stay dry. Um, the rudder, apparently the kayak rudder is necessary, because if you're going to be sitting in a kayak and then using a harpoon, then it's just going to swing around. So this rudder was designed in near Ilulissat in a place called Okatsut. Then they had these mittens which have two thumbs, and so the question is, do they have two thumbs? And the answer will come later, maybe. The answer is that basically, if it gets wet, then you can turn it around, use the other side, so you don't freeze. And then apparently, there's a big issue with when you're out in the kayak alone, you can get sort of lost and disoriented and so on. So just like you have mountain sickness, you have kayak dizziness, and so you can sort of really freeze, and that could be the end of you. So I think that's something they're worried about. The next one is the Ilulissat Museum, and it's old house of someone famous explorer called Knut Rasmussen. Knut Rasmussen explored all of Greenland and traveled across northern Canada. That's what he looked like. And the first expedition, so he did these series of 7 what he called Thule expeditions from 1912 to 1933. He crossed Greenland ice sheet first, so he went across on the sled, and that almost died on that one because there was nothing there on the way that he could, unless he hunted and so on. Then he surveyed this one was easier because he kept running into settlements so he surveyed the north coast of Greenland. And then the biggest thing he did was the famous fifth Thule expedition, where he crossed from Hudson Bay all the way to the Bering Strait. And it was a kind of a sociological study. So he documented everyone that he met and captured that. So that's very famous. And then in the seventh Thule expedition, he contracted food poisoning and got pneumonia and died. So that was his story. But one of the more interesting things was Mike. When I was there, Mike, I was in touch with Mike, and he said, "Oh, there was this movie there that did you see it? And can you get me a copy of the CD?" And I couldn't get him a copy of a CD, or I don't know if they had it. But in 1933, after his sociological study of the Inuit, he wrote a screenplay for something called The Wedding of Palo. So this is so I had taken videos of what they were playing in the museum there. So it's a European look at how these people live. But it was interesting. It's the film portrays this sort of two people fighting for the heroine, two suitors fighting for Nara. It's quite interesting though. So I'll play it for a minute. How they are. Okay. So then finally, we're going to share with you our stay in this apartment number 2, run by Pa and Yannick. And that's what it looked like outside the apartment. That's our view from the patio or the window balcony, and that's my drink.
By the way, Yannick is originally Danish, but they've lived in Greenland
And
forever.
Pa is Thai.
Pa is Thai. So there's an interesting, which we still haven't figured out, even though we've tried to do a lot of research. There is a large population of people from Thailand who might have come, for infrastructure projects, who knows what. And they have settled here. Okay, look at this.
This wonderful meal that I prepared. And we carried this tube of hot sauce. Yeah, one more look at the meal.
It's all bought from the grocery store.
So what are you going to do in this apartment while you watch the view outside? So this is a day in the apartment. A day in the apartment, and it turned out that I went away for a walk and came back and found that all the ice floors had shifted because there was a wind that took it all away. So by 3 o'clock it became blue.
And he had gone for the hike and I did not. And I actually watched, it got really warm, by the way, that day. And actually, some of them melted. You can see we're just standing there in,
Shirt sleeves,
literally, yeah, just
44
one layer.
degrees,
Yeah.
sunny. So you watch the bay and the icebergs on cloudy days, on sunny days. Here's one on cloudy days. There's me wearing her. This is you watch the boats
Yeah.
going out, you watch the boats coming in.
Constant boat draft. Oh, yeah. I mean,
You watch the boats, and you sometimes in shirt sleeves. You
and
watch,
pajamas.
you watch the boats, you watch the gulls attacking the fishing boats, you watch the gulls hanging out on ice floes, you watch the sunset, you watch the moon. You watch the sun and the half moon at the same time. And this was sort of another sort of exciting thing for us to discover, that once you're past in the Arctic Circle, you can have days in which the moon never sets. And so that was pretty exciting because it sort of swings around like this. It goes high and then it goes low and just never sets. And so that was something. So I had this almanac which said up all day, up all day, up all day.
It was indeed up
Indeed.
all day.
And so we took pictures. And then outside this apartment was two dogs tied and a puppy, and a puppy roaming around free. And so we got time to watch and play. And then Urmi played with the little puppy. And then the owner came and fed this guy. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then one evening, we watched these kids
So
and
after
the
school,
dogs.
yeah, after school, the kids are coming back, and you watch the typical, yeah, the typical activities of school children. So
They don't have
that's the amazing
smartphones.
part. Yeah, amazing part. Just kind of watch the local. I think Mike had also done that, but it was just incredible.
The dogs. And then the little dog.
That was the beauty of staying in this apartment, which was literally in the like heart of the town.
With a
As
view.
opposed to some of the hotels, which are, I mean, they're good, I'm sure, but and then we were walking up and down to the grocery store, to the ice fjord, while watching all these stuff going on. So we were literally locals.
And the taxi is zipping by. All right. So the at this Zion's church, there's more dedication to fishermen, and then there was this sign which was intriguing me. So I decided to figure out what that is. It said "Gutip Asaninera Imar Sumit Itina." So I decided to let Google Translate help me. So read along, and it was quite interesting how it develops. Mm. In the end, it turns out to be God's love is deeper than the sea. That was beautiful. Then we were there on a Sunday, so we went to a service in the church in Inuit, in Kalalisut. But I decided to be polite and not take a video. But then we did listen to it. It was a lot of singing, chorus with the organ. So it was very, very nice. But then I noticed that the authors of the Psalms were actually. So I looked them up, and it turned out that they are the ones who. Two of them are responsible for the two national anthems so instead of playing the service, we can listen to the national anthems that were composed by the two So there are two national anthems, one old one and one newer one from 1979. I won't play the whole thing. So then the newer one is this. Yeah, that's what I noticed. Okay. So that was our visit. And we expect to go back to Ilulissat.
Yeah, and we feel that, fortuitously, we ended up going before, as you know, what's going on. But more importantly, even before what's happening now, the US started nonstop flights from Newark, from New York, now to Nuuk. So from this summer, so it's good for them, I suppose, for Greenland. So there'll be a lot more visitors, but we ended up, I think, ahead of yeah. And so, yeah, and also going kind of later in the year, summer, I think they have a lot of visitors. But when we went was the shoulder season, and there were really very few people, tourists, visitors.
Well, thank you.
Exports. Do they export anything or is it all imports?
Mostly fish. Fish and shrimp.
Export fish.
Fish and shrimp.
Fish. And where do they
And-
get their food? How does it go get there?
By by ship and plane.
There's no cars, there's no drawing any.
No, this you can't.
Very little, yeah. Yeah.
The
Maybe in the southern part, we don't know. All we went to was this little. So we're telling you about Greenland, but we visited this little piece of Greenland. Yeah.
But one thing I just want to point out is that when you go see in Ilulissat, all the vegetation reminded me of when we had
Yeah.
finally reached the plateau in Himalaya. That's all the plant is, and it turned out it was about the same time. So all of the colors, the fall colors, and the plants, the Arctic plants,
Yeah.
or what?
That's all that grows.
Yeah.
Kids leave and go someplace else.
No, they stay
The
there.
kids, well, yes, saying yes.
Both. I mean, basically, they have university and college and so on in Nuuk, but a very small number of students, and then most people who go to college go to Denmark,
No, I think
and then they may or may not come back.
okay. For question, she was first. So
2 questions. I'm not sure how, did you go with a group? I wasn't sure if you planned to go yourself and just because you weren't on this cruise ship. So you planned it yourself.
We planned it ourselves with some hints from Mike early on.
that's why the planning was so difficult. We were going to go for 5 days, and we ended up being 12 days because you can't.
And the second question is, I mean, like all over the world, increased tourism brings a lot of questions and community meetings and so forth, and I'm wondering, well, if you know anything, if you learned anything about how the decisions are made about what's happening right now and where Denmark fits into this.
So let me first. Firstly, tourism. I think they're right for the moment. They're welcoming more tourism, and what they've done is they've both the Nuuk new airport in Nuuk opened this past year. So the reason we couldn't get to Nuuk was because the airport got closed because there were some issues. The new airport in Ilulissat is being built, and it'll be complete in another couple of years. And you're asking about issues to do with Denmark. I think Denmark, as we mentioned, feeds about a lot of the government revenues into the country, and so all the social services are provided by funds from Denmark, although the people operating those services are locals.
Do you still have a question? Yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious about the ferry. Does it run year round or does it?
No, it does not run year round. It comes to a stop somewhere in October and then starts in March, April, or something.
Yes.
That person, yeah.
Glaciers around the world are shrinking in size. Is that also true in Greenland?
To some extent, it's true. I think this particular glacier that we were talking about actually shrank and then actually actually grew back in the last 25 years. So it hasn't quite been shrinking as much. There was somebody raising two
Amy,
hands.
Amy.
I wondered, did you talk to anybody about effects of climate change there?
There was at the Ice Fjord Center, there was a lot of
Okay.
Ice-
displays.
The Icefjord Center has a
Fantastic
museum. Yeah, I didn't talk about it.
No, and we didn't really talk to people about it, but it was clear that it's effective.
Yeah.
And they do in all the people who took us on the boat rides and so on, they all talked about it.
Yes.
How did one person travel?
By dog sled.
Right now, yeah, that's what's happening now.
Dog sleds, yeah. In winter, it's all dog sleds, and so the number, they used to do dog sled for hunting and fishing and so on and so forth, and now grocery stores are available, so it's sort of a diminishing, and now some of it is for tourism. So in the process, the number of sled dogs has also been shrinking.
Yes.
How expensive is it?
Inexpensive.
Yeah, it's not compared to Iceland. No.
It was fairly inexpensive. Sarfag Ituk ferry. If you want to stay in cabins, they decided that that's for tourists because all the locals were using bunks, so the cabins they were charging a lot.
Oh.
You visited a children's home?
Yes.
So I was wondering who's running it, and I was the schools, are they run by the Danish government or by the Greenland government, and where did the teachers get their training? And then one third very good question. So dog sleds, it's interesting, but in many other places at similar circumstance, people drive around in skidoos. They don't use those in Greenland.
They probably do. I don't know.
Not-
We weren't there in winter.
No, are you talking about winter? We don't.
like-
Yeah. I'm sure they do.
They have everything.
Snowmobiles. Yeah, snowmobiles for sure.
They have everything, cranes and
Snow falls in the winter?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it
Don't
started
know.
snowing up to, I don't know the
Tens of feet to all those roads and the
Yes.
walkways and all that.
Yeah. If you see some of the recent pictures, now it's starting to look better. But
so one of the reasons to give lots of days is that storms can come in and so on. So
and I really want to go in winter one time.
But
Yes.
back to school.
Oh yeah.
we don't know the answer to your question.
So the only thing is that I know that the schools are independent, so they're run by Greenlandic people. In terms of education, I think they all, go to college in Nuuk or maybe even Denmark. In that, I don't know.
Yeah, but what's
Yeah,
the
the
teachers
teachers,
trained?
yeah,
We don't know.
That we don't know. More questions? Yes, sir.
You know the history of the people who live in that towns have been there for long.
What was the question?
History. Yeah, so they're originally the
Inuit.
Inuits from Canada. I mean, the same set of people, and they are very
And
well
Alaska.
integrated. They're very well integrated. I just felt like they were. I mean, people you meet randomly in the grocery store, they all looked happy. I mean, honestly, in the evening, it didn't look like, I don't know. They all looked comfortable and happy, which I was really happy to see.
Are you working on a price to sell to the States yet?
We don't.
The fifth.
We don't know the answer. Yes.
How fast are the sloughing of the ice coming down? Is it increasing or decreasing or what?
Probably increasing.
Or sloughing?
We assume that the climate change is impacting the glaciers. We assume that's true. Yeah.
Well, I think maybe we need to close the session now.
Thank you.
If you want to just take a quick look,
Some books and
some books and maps, but maybe you have to go for dinner or go to bed.
If you have any more questions, I mean, if you want to go, go, but if you have more questions, you come up here.